Just gonna wait a little bit more to get started, but I guess I'll tell you guys a little bit of background of what we're doing today. I'm sure you guys saw my stories of what we're talking about. This is gonna be an astrology lesson on how to decode your planets in your houses. I've been awesome, Astrid. Thank you. I know, I feel like it's been a long time since I've talked to you guys, and there's been a lot that's been happening like behind the scenes for me, business-wise, really trying to like solidify things in my life. But Libra season is coming, and I think because I'm a Taurus sun, Venus rules Libra and Taurus, I'm kind of feeling more like getting myself out there again. So yeah, wanting to come back more publicly. But again, in this class, we're going to be talking about how to decode your planets in the houses. So just to give you guys a little overview, obviously I'm sure all of you guys have seen your birth chart already. If not, then get it handy. But you guys have seen how you have planets in certain houses on your chart. Like you might be someone who has your sun in the 4th house, or your Mars in the 5th house, or like Venus in the 11th house. Whatever it might be, you have all these planets, but it's like, what do those placements actually mean? Like, what does it mean to have Mars in a house versus the sun or the moon or Venus? So that is exactly what we'll be talking about today. I will tell you guys exactly what each planet represents and how it manifests in each of your houses. So at the end of this, you should be able to read your houses a lot more clearly. Hi, Steve, member from my Lunar Mission Club. Awesome. Yeah, so that's what we're going to talk about. Thank you, Anna. Yeah, all is well. Really excited for fall, honestly. Fall foliage, all of those things. But again, we're going to be talking about, I'm going to give you a run through of all the planets from Sun to Pluto. I'm going to go in depth into what each of the planets represent in terms of their energy, their experiences, how they manifest. I will give you guys examples for each, but you can feel free to comment your placements as I go along, so I can answer as I go. But I will try to answer more at the end if we have time, so we'll see. Again, we are slated for going an hour. I might go over, I always do, so no worries if you have to leave, because again, I'll be reposting this. But with that, again, I will try to take questions at the end if we have time. Now, the last thing before I jump in is that today I'm not going to be talking about the signs at all. Like, I'm mostly going to focus on planets and the houses. What a planet means in a house. And with that, I'm going to primarily focus on the planets, because honestly, there's just like so much to discuss with the planets themselves. We could take probably many days to discuss that, but I'm going to be talking about the planets. I'm not going to go too in-depth into any of the houses. Like, I'll give you guys little insights here and there, but I'm not going to go too in-depth because this is mostly about the planets. But with that, if any of you guys are actually interested in learning more about the houses, then we actually have a class specifically on that coming up this Sunday in the Lunar Mission Club. So if you guys want to get in on that, then definitely stay tuned until the end of this live, because I'm going to be sharing this cool offer for how you guys can join that class for free. Obviously, we all love free. So again, I'm going to be having a class on the houses coming up soon, and you will be able to join that for free. Stay tuned for the deets. But with all that said, I will now get started on this class. Steve says join it. Yes, he's a part of the Lunar Mission Club from the beginning. We love you, Steve. Okay, awesome. Let me just scroll my notes. Okay, so let's get started on this lesson. First, I'm going to start with kind of an overview of the houses and planets in general. Just so, because some of you guys might be beginners, right? Of course, I have my paper chart here, as I always do. But this is your birth chart. And as you can see, this inner wheel that I'm moving around, this white wheel, this represents the houses. There are 12 houses in total, from 1 to 12, obviously. But this is the part of your chart that represents the houses. And what you need to understand is that houses on your chart represent different areas of human life. So each house represents a specific set of your life, a specific aspect of your life. So you can think about a house as like this little compartment or container, or like an actual little house that contains certain aspects of your human life. For example, you know, a lot of you guys probably know that the 4th house is the one in astrology that rules home and family life. So anything that has to do with your home, your family, your mom, your dad, all of those things fall in the 4th house. Your 10th house is the one that rules career. So anything that has to do with your career or higher calling will be found in the 10th house. The ninth house and the third house are the houses that rule education. The second house and eighth house are the ones that rule money. The fourth house, eighth house, and 12th house all rule spirituality. So each of the houses are very complex and very nuanced. That's kind of why I'm not going to get into it, because they're all so complicated. But just understand that houses represent different areas of human life, and it really tells you where things happen in your life. Now, with that, you will... Hi, Christian from Owl Spiritual. I did a podcast with him. Love talking to you. But with that, houses represent areas of life, and planets represent different sets of energy, events, and experiences. Planets are really what makes things happen in our lives. They represent a certain type of energy, a certain type of experience, and they also represent different aspects of ourselves. So for example, Mercury is the planet that rules your brain. It's kind of like your intellectual processes. So your Mercury tells you how you think, what you like to think about, what you like to learn about. Venus is the planet that rules your heart. So Venus really represents what you love, how you feel affection. Mars is the planet that rules your fighting side. So your Mars specifically tells you what you like to fight about, how you like to fight, what motivates you, all of those things. So I just want to say that each planet brings a specific set of energy, experiences, and really represents specific sides of yourself. And it brings those energies to the house that they're located in on your chart. So for example, I talked about how the fourth house rules home and family life, this one. So let's say you had Venus in your fourth house. Venus represents what you love. So having Venus in the fourth house means that you love your family. You love home and family life. Something about this area of life is the things you love, the things you desire, the things you value. Again, I'm going to go into all this as I go through the planets, but Venus in the fourth house means that your love, your affection comes out in matters of the fourth house. So the planet tells you what's going to happen, and the house tells you where it's going to happen. So that's easy way to think about it, is the planet is the what and the house is the where. So that's kind of the formula you guys need to use to interpret planets in houses. I'm going to hold that thought about Venus in the eighth house because I will answer it when I actually get to Venus. But I want to quickly go over the overview. Again, planets bring experiences to a specific area of life based on the house that it falls in on your chart. So hopefully that is clear. Okay, so with that said, I'm going to go into what each planet represents. Let me just move my notes. Have some water. Okay, so I'm going to start with the sun. Arguably, the sun is the most important planet on your chart because the sun is really the center of the universe, right? Like all the planets in the solar system revolve around the sun. And in that same way, all of our lives revolve around our personal sun as well, the sun on our birth chart. But the house where you have your sun located in on your chart is really the area of life where you shine, where you are very bright, like the sun. You are bright, vibrant, dazzling. That's where your true personality really shines, where you really feel like you can be your true self, where you feel like your most authentic self. So the house of your sun is really the area of life where your most authentic core personality comes out the most. So obviously you can imagine the house of your sun is really important to understand deeply because that is the area of life where you really feel like a shining, bright, magnetic sun. The sun actually shines its rays in the house where you have that planet. So when the sun is shining in a specific house, it also brings blessings. It brings natural success. It brings things happening easily for you guys. So the sun is a really beneficial planet, and the house of your sun is an area of life where you can experience a lot of natural success because again, it's the area of life where your personality shines the brightest and where you really feel like you can be your true self. So yeah, let me answer some questions about specific placements. Sun in the 8th house means that your personality really shines in all matters of the 8th house. And the 8th house is a really deep one. It's very complicated actually. But in general, the 8th house represents things that are underneath the surface. You know, you are someone who likes to get deep. You are not someone who likes to see things on a surface level. You like to go deep to the core to get to the truth. So you may be really interested in things like psychology, because psychology is a way to understand people on a deeper level. You may really be interested in counseling, therapy. You may be someone who likes occultism, mysticism, because that's another way to get underneath the surface. So your sun shines when you're actually digging deep to get to the truth, and you're not accepting things at a surface level. Sun in the third house, that's my placement actually. The third house rules communication and education. So you really shine when you're doing anything that is intellectually stimulating actually. So for me at least, I really enjoyed studying basically when I was younger. I liked reading. I was always reading books or listening to something or watching TV. And I feel like it comes out now because I really enjoy teaching as an astrologer. You know, there's so many astrologers, right? But my niche, I feel like, is teaching. And that's what I want to say is that the house of your sun is really likely to become the center of your life. Like it might become the primary focus of your life, or it might become part of your career because again, you shine so brightly there. So definitely take a look at the house of your sun because that can be an important area in terms of career. You should really focus on it actually because you can leave your own authentic mark there, like your own inner sun. You can leave that mark in that specific house. If you have sun in the sixth house, then the sixth house rules health and wellness specifically. So you may be really good at helping people get more fit, helping people feel better about their bodies. It can be about plant medicine, nutrition. The sixth house is also about organization and schedules and rituals. So any organizational aspect of life is where your personality shines. Sun in the 12th house, I will admit, can be a little bit tricky because the 12th house, it's all about secrets and things that are hidden. It's the last house of the wheel, and so it really represents death, actually, things that are beyond. But when you have sun in the 12th house, you can really see beyond the veil, if that makes sense. Sun in the 8th house can see underneath the surface, but sun in the 12th house can see beyond the physical, kind of like the spiritual matters or the intuitive matters of life, the mystical matters. So that's where your personality shines, is transcendental things or creative things. Sun in the 11th house shines when you're among friends and community members because the 11th house rules your community, your networks, your groups. So you really want to be careful or cognizant about who you surround yourself with actually. Sun in the 7th house is similar because the 7th house rules relationships, but you specifically need to be cognizant about your close one-on-one bonds, like your best friend, your partner, your boyfriend, your mom, very close, intimate relationships. Okay. Sun in the 10th house, the 10th house rules career. So that really means that you're meant to have a career where you shine for your personality. So this is kind of the vibe of an influencer, I would say, or someone who is a leader in their career, someone who is seen as a public figure or an authority figure. So whatever it is, like your identity is meant to come out in your career. And that sometimes means being a public figure in some sense. Okay, with that, let's move on to the moon. Again, I will continue to answer questions at the end if I have time. But the house of the sun and the moon, I would say, is really the most important ones to focus on. The house of the moon is really the area of life where you are the happiest. And this is, matters of this house is really what you really need in order to feel emotionally fulfilled. The moon represents your emotions, your attachments, your desires, your needs. Like we all have emotional needs, right? You know, some of us have an emotional need to be comforted. Other people have an emotional need to be independent. But whatever your need is, it really shows up the most in the house of your moon. So the moon is the area of life where you seek self-care, security, comfort. You really need things to be right in this house in order for you to feel like your best self. So it's really the house of your emotional security, safety, and self-care. And what I want to say with the house of the moon is that, you know, even if everything else in your life is going well, like even if you have a great career and maybe you have a great partner, your home life is going well, even if everything's going good, if things are not right in the house of your moon, then everything is going to feel like it's not working out. You're never going to be fully happy unless things are okay in the house of your moon. Because again, that's the area of life where you have the strongest emotional needs, where you really need to be comforted and where you really need to feel safe and secure there. So with that, the house of your moon is really vital for self-care. The sun is more about like going out in the world, shining your personality, but the moon is about how good you feel internally. For example, my moon is in the 6th house, which I said rules health, wellness, organization. So I definitely find that I don't feel good unless things are organized in my life, basically. Unless I have a routine, I have a schedule, I'm focusing on what I'm eating. There have definitely been times where I just like eat like crap and do whatever I want. But in those times, I really feel like nothing is going well and I feel down in the dumps. I could kind of feel depressed, basically. So that's just one example about moon in the 3rd house. This person has their moon in the 7th house. The 7th house, again, is about relationships. And so you're really not going to feel your best self unless you really feel like you have someone, a partner, a close relationship to confide in. You are someone who may need to always bounce your ideas off of someone or get advice from someone. Again, even if everything else is working out in your life, if you don't have a close confidant and someone you can really lean on, you're not going to feel like your best self. Moon in the 9th house would be someone who really needs freedom, independence. You can't be tied down. If you're in a situation where you feel restricted, then you're not going to be happy. Moon in the 3rd house is someone who really needs social connection, social interaction. So if you're kind of like, you might have been one of those people who had to work from home because of COVID and you're not talking to anyone all day, you're kind of in front of your computer. With moon in the 3rd house, that's really not going to make you happy. That's going to make you feel unfulfilled. And you really need to push yourself to seek connection otherwise if you're not getting that in your day-to-day life. If you have moon in the 1st house, that means your emotions are a big part of your identity. And it means that you're not afraid to put your emotions out there and kind of to wear your heart on your sleeves. But you may also be someone who cares too much about what other people think about you. That can be something that happens because we seek emotional safety in how people receive us and how people think of us. So you may need to kind of just watch out for that. But your sensitivity is your gift and something you can share with others as well. Moon in the 8th house, like I said before with the sun in the 8th house, you have an emotional need to get underneath the surface and you like to be private. So you are someone who doesn't like to have like a bunch of surface level connections. You definitely do best with like a close knit circle of friends, a close group that you can trust and rely on. You're not going to be someone who kind of like shares everything to everyone. You need to keep a lot to yourself. But with that, you have to watch out for not being someone who doesn't like to be vulnerable. Sometimes you need to be vulnerable and honest with other people. So just make sure you're not hiding too much. Awesome. Okay, people seem to say whatever I said was spot on, so that's awesome. Okay. Let's keep going to Mercury because we have so much to cover. Okay, so the house of your Mercury. I talked about before how Mercury represents your brain, your intellectual processes. So what I always say is that the house of your Mercury, or Mercury represents your mind and your mouth. So it's really the things that you like to think about and the things that you like to talk about. So whichever house you have Mercury is the area of life where those are the things that you like to think about, the things that you like to learn about, the things that you like to study. It's really the area of life where you're very curious and you're very intrigued and you want to know more about everything about that house. You like to learn about it and you also like to talk about it. So this house can be something that you teach or share a message, do social media around, anything like that. So it's really about the things that interest you intellectually. Now, what's interesting about Mercury is that Mercury is often in the same house as your sun, actually, because Mercury always travels very close to the sun. So you might find that your Mercury is in either the same house as your sun or just kind of one house over. But if it's in the same house as your sun, then it just doubles the emphasis that this is a really important area of life for you to focus on. So definitely just watch out for that. Again, it's really where you feel the most curious and intrigued. Mercury in the 9th house. Like I said before, the 9th house rules education, actually. So Mercury is already about intellectual things. The 9th house is about education. So you are really someone who is interested in learning about different schools of thought. It's kind of like different philosophies, different ethics, different religions, different laws, but you're really interested in a higher level of thinking and you're gonna want to push yourself to study whatever is whatever it is connecting to your fascination. So if there's something that you're really interested in, then you have to go after it. The ninth house also rules travel. And so you may be really interested in learning about foreign cultures, learning about different countries. You may learn so much more about yourself when you actually go out of your little bubble to see the world. So that's definitely something to think about. Mercury in the fifth house. The fifth house is about fun, actually. And so the things that you like to think about and talk about are anything that you feel like is fun, the activities that you feel like are fun. That could be your hobbies, your sports, your interests, just like your passion projects, whatever it might be. But you really want to be working on activities that you find playful, that you find just like kind of makes you feel like a kid again. And with that, you can also teach other people, because Mercury is about teaching, you can teach other people how to tap into their own inner child as well. So that's something to think about. Mercury in the 12th house. The 12th house rules spirituality, transcendence. It also rules creativity, artistry, especially music. And so you may really like to learn about any of those topics. So if there is a spiritual topic that interests you, like maybe you want to be learning about tarot reading or astrology, obviously, or perhaps you want to be learning more about film, music, kind of the more creative areas of life, that's where your brain is the most activated, the most stimulated. And those are the things that you can teach to other people as well. Mercury in the 11th house. The 11th house rules your community, your groups, and your friendships. So you really have an important message to share with the community. It's a very humanitarian house. So you may really want to connect to like a social justice cause, basically, because those are some of the things that you can really dive deep into intellectually. And you have an important message to share when it comes to social justice or equality or making things more fair. It's all about anything that can make things better for the group. And so you want to connect to anything intellectually that you want to study there. Mercury in the 6th house. I think you said you have another planet in the 6th house, Astrid, but the 6th house again rules health and wellness. So you may want to learn more about just any way to feel good about your body. That might even be like spiritual ways, you know, like Reiki, acupuncture, crystal healing. It depends on the sign you have there, but you want to learn more about ways in which we can feel pure, detoxified, exfoliated, and really just comfortable in our physical body. So those are some of the things to think about there. Oh yeah, I also want to say if you have Mercury in the 1st house, then that means you are a talker. You are someone who likes to talk, because the 1st house rules your identity. Mercury is about your mind and your mouth. So your communication comes out very strongly in your identity. So you may be someone who just likes to talk. Okay, let's go on to Venus. Again, I have so much to cover, so I'll keep going. Okay, Venus, the planet of love, relationships, romance. It also rules creativity, beauty, artistry. So the house where you have your Venus is really the area of life that you love. These are the areas or the subject matters that you really value, that you really desire, that you really prioritize over other things. So this is an area of life where you love things here, you value things here, and you can actually also attract those things very easily. So the house of your Venus tells you the things that you might love, the areas of life where you express affection, romance, areas of life where you may find romance, like you might find a partner or, you know, boyfriend there. And it also tells you your specific law of attraction, because Venus is about the things that we value and also about how we attract those things, how we magnetize it towards us. So the house of your Venus tells you also what you attract very easily and how you attract those things. So I think someone said that they have Venus in the 12th house. Again, like I said before with 12, it's you love things that help you kind of lose touch with reality or connect to something that is greater than yourself. That is usually spirituality or creativity. It's about compassion, healing other people, doing things where you are very loving and taking care of other people. And you also attract the things you want when you do those 12th house things. So if you are consistently doing meditative practice, or if you're consistently taking care of other people, or consistently doing art, you may find that you attract your desires very easily through doing those things. So you really need to focus on kind of strengthening your skills in the 12th house. If you have Venus in the 3rd house, that is also the area of life where your creativity comes out and you can make a lot of art there. So the third house rules communication. Venus in the third house means that you have a very creative way of communicating, and you may be someone who creates communication art projects, if that makes sense. So what I'm thinking is like film or music or installation art pieces. Your way of communicating is very Venus. It's very loving, it's very compassionate, it's also very artistic. So that's one example of the third house. This person says Venus in the seventh house, dealing with relationships. So you have a double emphasis on relationships with Venus in the seventh house. You value close connections. You want them, you need them. That's how you feel the most vibrant, the most feminine. But it's also the ways in which you can attract things more easily. So if you are making time for your closer relationships, making time to nurture those bonds and make sure that you show up for other people, those other people will be how you attract things. Those people will bring opportunities to you, or new connections, or new romance. You want to nurture your relationships in order to attract other things in your life. Venus in the second house. So that's interesting because Venus is a money planet, and the second house rules money as well. So you really are someone who values the practical things in life. So oftentimes that's money, but it's also anything that makes you feel grounded, safe, secure, whether that's making more money or having more possessions, having a nice car or house, whatever it might be. And you are someone who can also gain those things easily. So you might want to think about just learning more about anything related to the second house. So if you learn more about like investing, crypto, anything that has to do with making money or achieving your goals practically, you can manifest your desires very easily when you do second house things. So you really want to focus on learning more about that area of life. Venus in the first house means that you are a lover. Your identity is Venus. The first house rules your identity, your personality, your sense of self. And Venus means that you come across as this kind of like Aphrodite figure. You're a Venus. You're this goddess, essentially, like an empress type of energy. You can be very creative, very artistic in general. I actually have Venus in my first house as well. I've always connected to this like feminine, creative energy. Even if you're a man, obviously, it doesn't matter. But just something to think about. You are a lover if you have Venus in the first house. Venus in the ninth house means that you really value your freedom, your independence, and your ability to kind of go out there and see what you want to see, like go out and see the world. So you really need to always proactively be doing things that kind of push you out of your comfort zone. So you need to be going on adventures, you need to be studying things that are exciting, even if it's kind of like uncomfortable. You actually thrive when you do things that are a little bit uncomfortable but also exciting. And that's also how you will attract things to you. Okay. Venus in the third house, I think I said that. Yeah, it's about having a beautiful way of communicating. And when you share a message or when you connect with your neighborhood, your social networks, that is how you attract things into your life. Okay, now let's go on to Mars. The house of Mars is kind of the counterpart to Venus because obviously you think of Venus is feminine, Mars is masculine. And so the house of your Mars really represents the area of life that motivates you, where you feel very passionate, and where your fighter sense comes out. So Mars really represents your inner fighter, the way you fight, the way you take action, what motivates you, where you like to take initiative, all of those things. So the house of your Mars is the area of life where your inner fighter comes out. So that is actually somewhat likely to be part of your career as well, just like the sun actually, because again, the house of your Mars is where you like to take initiative, where you like to just try things, where you like to take action, be a warrior, be a leader. So the house of your Mars is also important in terms of career, I feel. You have a lot of motivation and drive here. So if you're feeling like, oh, I don't know what I'm passionate about, or like, I don't know what interests me or excites me, then you definitely want to look at the house of your Mars. Obviously, you want to look at a lot of the houses, but the house of your Mars, Sun, and Jupiter, I would say, are some of the most important to look at because again, the house of your Mars is where you find a lot of motivation and passion. Mars in the 10th house means that your motivation comes through your career. So you are motivated to have the career that you want, have the type of lifestyle you want when it comes to your job. You may be someone who wants to do something that's quite exciting or action-oriented when it comes to a career. You think about Mars as someone who is fighting or competitive or an athlete. So any job that kind of encompasses those energies, which can be like a paramedic, it can be a promoter, it can be a salesperson. I mean, those are just stereotypes. It can be so many things. But your Mars energy needs to come out through your career and the job that you do. So that's something to think about with the 10th house. Mars in the first house means that you are a fighter. Venus in the first house is a lover. Mars in the first house is a fighter. Mercury in the first house is a talker, communicator, messenger. But Mars in the first house means that you really need to show up as someone who fights for other people, someone who is an advocate, someone who motivates other people or inspires other people or empowers other people. I also have my Mars in the first house. So I have Venus and Mars in my first house. So I both have the feminine and masculine in my first house. I definitely feel like I like to motivate people, but I like to do it in a Venus way where it's more compassionate, more emotional based. So it really depends on other planets and the signs, but that's one way to interpret Mars in the first house. Moon in the first house. I said moon in the first house before. It's someone who is emotional, or you express your emotions as part of your identity, and part of that means that you care a lot about what other people think about you. With a Capricorn moon, you can be someone who is really hard on yourself. You have a lot of responsibility, and couple that with the fact that in the first house you care about what other people think about you. You just need to be really gentle with yourself and practice a lot of self-care. Now, if you have Mars in the 5th house also rules dating, and the Mars is also the planet of sex, actually. Sex, your like physical vigor, your drive. So you may really be motivated to have fun with people, date around, in the best ways, obviously. But Mars in the 5th house is also about being really passionate about doing things that are fun. So you really might not feel motivated unless you're doing a project that connects to something that you're really intrigued about, or that is one of your passion projects. You need to always be doing something fun in order to activate the most motivation. Okay. Mars in the 7th house is relationships. So you really are motivated the most. You find a lot of motivation when you talk to your close friends. So you really need to, again, nurture those bonds. Venus in the 7th house is about being able to attract things through your relationships. Like your best friend might come with a good job opportunity, or they might set you up on a blind date. But Mars in the 7th house is like your friends help you get motivated, or your friends help you find a passion, or your friends are something that you want to fight for. You want to fight for your friends. You want to advocate for your friends. The 7th house also rules legal matters, equality, justice, fairness. So you may really be good in areas of law, actually. Law, being a lawyer, any of those things might actually really interest you. I do want to say, actually, though, with Mars, Mars is where you find motivation and action, but it is also the house where you can experience conflict. And I don't want this to scare anyone, but the house of your Mars can indicate an area of life where you experience some type of conflict, sometimes with male figures, because Mars represents men or like masculine energy. And so just watch out for that. But again, still, you can be more fiery there. You can be more assertive. You can be more confident. You can be more of a winning mindset in that house of your Mars. So that is still important no matter what. Mars in the 12th house, again, they do like to find motivation through things that kind of help them lose touch with reality, kind of help them feel like they're doing something that is greater than themselves or has a bigger purpose or a bigger meaning. So oftentimes that means doing something that is healing for other people, or doing things that are creative. Mars in the 12th house, so I will say the 12th house rules your subconscious mind. And so you can sometimes have like inner turmoil, inner conflicts with yourself. Like you might have a lot of difficult thoughts. It can be about difficult mental health. So you just want to make sure that you're always taking time for self-care. If any of you guys have planets in the 12th house, then you absolutely need to always be prioritizing your alone time, your rest, your relaxation, because you're really not going to be happy unless you do that. There's a lot going on underneath the surface for you in terms of your mental health. And so you really need to be cognizant of that. Okay, Mars in the 11th house, you are someone who needs to fight for the world, the community. The 11th house is about humanitarian ideals, philanthropy, doing things that are really good for the world, doing things that make the world a better place for all. And that is where your passion is going to come out the most. So you want to be looking into causes that you want to join. You want to be fighting for a movement. You want to be fighting for people who can't fight for themselves. This is also the area of life where you can turn your ideas into action very easily. And again, so it can be very much an important part of your career. Okay. Let's move on to the rest of the planets. Gonna take a water. Okay, so house of your Jupiter, I'm excited to talk about because Jupiter is really one of the most beneficial, fortuitous planets on your chart. So Jupiter in astrology really represents luck, success, opportunity, abundance. It represents like things that naturally grow very easily, things where you experience natural success. So the house of your Jupiter is extremely, extremely important to focus on because that is the area of life where you experience natural luck, natural success. It's the area of life where things just seem to happen so easily for you. Things seem to happen effortlessly. You kind of have the Midas touch there. Whatever you touch turns to gold in the house that you have. I saw someone has Jupiter in the 7th house. But the house of your Jupiter is the area of life where you experience natural growth, abundance, expansion. And it's obviously super important in terms of your career, your higher calling, because again, that area is going to grow the most easily for you. So you definitely want to pay attention to that. It is the area of life where you are blessed, and you can also experience a lot of financial abundance, I would say. So the house of your Venus and Jupiter are the two areas of life where you can easily receive financial abundance, financial manifestation. And so those are kind of like the money planets. You want to look at which houses they are in. And the core reason why the house of your Jupiter is so important is because that house is the area of life where you have the most joy, actually. You have the most excitement about matters of that house. You're also the most optimistic about matters of that house. And so when you are joyful, when you are excited, when you are optimistic, that means you are going to be putting out the vibrations for success naturally. You just do it without thinking. When you're excited about something, when you're optimistic about something, that is how you put out the vibrations of attracting more of that stuff into your life. And so the house of your Jupiter is where you experience all of those things. And that's why things seem to happen so easily for you guys there. So definitely something to think about. Jupiter in the 4th house means that you really experience the most success when you are dealing with home, family, personal life. It's not just about home and family, but it's really about anything that has to do with your personal, emotional, inner world. So you may be really good at taking care of other people. You may be really good at helping others feel better. You may be really good at, bringing self-care to other people. And if you work in those areas, like maybe you are a counselor or a therapist, or you are a nurse, or you're just someone who is working to help other people feel more safe and secure, that is how you receive the most abundance. And that is the career that is going to grow the most easily for you guys. And so that's definitely something important for you guys to think about. Jupiter in the 10th house actually means that your career, the 10th house, is naturally blessed. You can experience natural success there. Sorry, I had to burp. So you actually want to kind of be taking risks with your career in the 10th house. If you want to go for a job, maybe you don't feel quite qualified, but you are really interested, trust that Jupiter will help you get those like high goals, things that you might feel like it's kind of even out of your reach. You always need to be taking risks in the house of your Jupiter because those risks are going to pay off. It's like big risks lead to big rewards with Jupiter. And so you always want to kind of push yourself out of your comfort zone because that is how you're going to receive that natural success and luck. Jupiter in the 5th house, you really have luck. That's my placement actually. So you really have luck when you put your creations out into the world. So you really need to be thinking about like, what do I want to create in the world? What do I feel like the world needs? What do I feel like I am here to give to the world? Whether that is a business or like a service or whatever it might be. You really need to think about what you are here to create, how you're meant to leave your mark because your creations are how you have the most luck. Like for me, I feel like I was really meant to create my own business doing astrology and to also show other people how they can create a business for themselves as well, and how they can become more financially independent and detached from the system and all of those things. So you just have to think about what is your way of leaving your mark, because anything that you do that is creatively fueled, that's about following your own passions with the fifth house, that is really how you have the most luck. Jupiter in the second house, that's like kind of what everyone wants to see, honestly, because the second house rules money. And so that does have a sense that you can receive money easily. Similar to Venus in the second house, you definitely want to be learning about all matters of finance, whether that is budgeting, whether that's investing, whatever it means to like be wise with your money and to make more money. Anything you do in that area of life can be really beneficial and really just you have natural success with it. And so you definitely want to think about that. Jupiter in the ninth house. It really means that you are a philosopher. You're a very wise person. You are someone who has very big ideas, and you're kind of here to set the moral code for society, if that makes sense. Jupiter is also a very philosophical planet. And so when it's in the ninth house, which rules higher education, it's like you have to share your specific beliefs, your specific opinions. It also might be spiritual beliefs, but you are meant to be sharing your beliefs about the world in order to make things a better place. Okay. Jupiter in the first house means that you need to come across as a Jupiter-like figure. So Jupiter, like I said, is a philosopher. They are someone who's very wise. They're someone who has a lot of knowledge. It doesn't mean you need to study, but you need to think about what is my personal truth? What are my opinions? What are my values? And what is my philosophy about the world? Because you are meant to share that philosophy. Jupiter in the first house means that you are meant to be a philosopher. You are meant to be a professor. You are meant to be sharing your beliefs to other people. You are also supposed to be someone who helps people get out of their comfort zone. So you need to be somewhat of a coach or someone who empowers people, motivates people to go further than they thought was possible. All of people don't seem to listen. Yeah, that's fine. You will connect to people who are meant to hear your message. So don't worry about that. Jupiter in the third house means that you have luck when you do anything related to communication or education. So you really want to think about what are the things you want to learn? What are the things you want to study? And also, what are the things that you want to teach? Because you'll have a lot of luck teaching or being a spokesperson or kind of just sharing some kind of message about the things that really interest you. Jupiter doesn't work unless you're personally really passionate about it and you're really excited and optimistic about all of those things. So just think about what really interests you intellectually. And those are the areas of life where you have super luck. Okay. Oh, but one thing I did want to add about the house of your Jupiter, it's really where we need to push ourselves and kind of like take big risks. But it's also the area of life where you can overdo things and you can go too big. It's kind of like, you go big or you go home. Sometimes you go too big. So just watch out because people can tend to overindulge there. Like if you have Jupiter in the fifth house rules fun. So you can be someone who has too much fun or is too indulgent about, just like the ways in which you have fun, your dating life, any of those things. So just be aware of that. Okay. Okay, awesome. Yeah, some people have questions about what it means when planets are in the same house. I will talk about that a little bit later after I talk about some of the other planets. Okay, let me take some water. Okay, guys. Okay, so now I'm going to be talking about the rest of the planets. We have Saturn, Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto. 4 planets left, and I will say these 4, Saturn to Pluto, these are really the most difficult and challenging planets on your birth chart. They're really the ones that bring challenges, obstacles, and lessons that kind of force us to grow, force us to evolve. So I just want to preface that by saying that these are some of the difficult planets I'll be talking about now. It will really reveal your biggest life challenges. But with that, I really want to emphasize the fact that, my personal philosophy is that these difficult planets are here to bring lessons that challenge us to become better versions of ourselves. And these are really the planets that help us tap into our higher self. So I don't want you guys to see these planets as a bad thing because, as human beings, we never really grow unless we have resistance, unless we have something that is forcing us to be better, to do better, to strive for higher things. We really don't grow without obstacles and resistance. And so I definitely feel like Saturn to Pluto are the planets that bring resistance, because that is exactly what you need to tap into your higher self. So these planets are not to fear. Again, you don't grow without resistance in your life. But let's go on to Saturn first. Saturn, I would say, out of all the four, is the most important planet, because I'm sure you guys have heard about your Saturn return, a really important period of life. I will talk about that, but the house of your Saturn, that really represents the area of life that is your biggest life challenge. So of all the planets, Saturn shows you the area of life that is your biggest life challenge. It is where your life tests show up. It is where you experience the most amount of obstacles, the most amount of difficulty. It's like where you need to learn hard lessons in order to achieve something better. It's also the area of life where you need to get on track. So just know that the house of your Saturn is the area of life where you will run into obstacles. You will run into resistance, limitations, restrictions. It will feel like you're trying to do something there. You're trying to make things happen, but you just seem to keep getting pushed back by something. And that pushback is Saturn's energy. This is the area of life where you feel resistance. You also feel unsupported sometimes. You feel like people are not helping you. You feel like you're all alone. These things are happening on purpose, because Saturn really wants you to become responsible for yourself in that house. Saturn is putting up all these roadblocks, obstacles, challenges, because it is wanting to teach you how to be more mature, more responsible, more disciplined when it comes to areas of that house. It's not just to mess up your life and make you have a hard time. It's really to show you how responsible you can be, how mature you can be, how authoritative you can be. You really have the greatest potential in the house of your Saturn, actually. That is the area of life where you can experience the most success and achievement on a professional scale as well. But again, that doesn't come without some of these difficulties that kind of force you to, not blame other people, not, think that other people are responsible for your problems. It forces you to be more focused, to be more disciplined. It forces you to become mature. This is also the area of life where you can build an empire. This house of your Saturn really represents the area of life where you can be an authority figure. Saturn is an authority figure. He's a teacher. He's a leader. And so that house is where you can achieve all of those things, and where you can really build an empire, be a mogul, achieve like public recognition and success, right? Where you can be a leader. But again, those things don't come without the challenges first. And that is why your Saturn return is so important, because your Saturn return is a time of life where those challenges will be the most public and visible, and you will feel them the most strongly. Saturn returns happen every 30 years. So it'll happen around age 28 to 31, and then again around age 60, and then age 90. So every 30 years, we need to revisit Saturn's lessons. And Saturn will show you where you are not being responsible, where you're kind of just like doing the bare minimum, and you know that you're not doing everything you need to be doing there. Saturn returns are a time when all those things come up to the surface, and you really need to get back on track. So definitely be aware of that. Okay, so let me answer some of your questions. Saturn in the 5th house. This is an interesting one. So again, the houses are very complex. One thing about the 5th house is that it does rule dating, romance. It rules like love affairs. And so I have seen people with Saturn in the 5th house have a really difficult time with dating. I have a best friend actually who has this placement, and she just has the worst relationships. But Saturn brings difficulty in dating because you can be someone who tends to care about other people's opinions when it comes to romance. So if you're dating someone and they ghost you, you may be someone who really takes that too personally. And Saturn is trying to teach you to put up boundaries, to know that like some people's opinions don't matter, and like you don't have to care what everyone thinks about you in terms of dating. You need to be someone who puts up boundaries. Like if someone is treating you like shit, then you need to know when to stop, when to say no, when to end the relationship. So Saturn in the 5th house can mean becoming more disciplined about dating. But also the 5th house rules your creativity and your passions. And when Saturn is there, it can actually make you feel like you're not good at anything, like you're not talented, you don't have any unique skills, you don't have anything to offer to the world. And that means you specifically really need to learn how to empower yourself and how to find the self-confidence. Sorry guys, I'm back. My time limit just popped up. But again, Saturn in the 5th house means that you may have trouble feeling like you're not good at anything. And you really need to figure out how to find self-confidence in yourself and to not look at it from other people. You may also really need to work on learning a skill or a hobby or a talent, because that is something that you lack or you want. And so just think about that. Saturn in the 2nd house can mean difficulties around the practical matters of life. So it can mean difficulties around money, making money, or kind of feeling like you have what it takes to achieve your goals. So for you specifically, you may really need to think about getting more disciplined about achieving your goals. Like maybe you are someone who has all these ideas, but you can't finish them from A to Z. Like maybe you start and then you don't finish it. Maybe you kind of lose interest and things never get done. So you really need to figure out your best way of setting goals. Like, do you need to set small goals, or maybe you need to set big goals? Maybe you need to break your goals into smaller milestones. Just think about the best way for you to achieve what you actually want, because Saturn in the 2nd house can make it difficult for you to get money, but that's because you're not having enough discipline to get those practical things for yourself. With that, 2nd house can also mean that you feel a lack of self-worth. You feel like you are not worthy of the things that you desire. Like maybe you feel like you're not worthy of a higher salary or worthy of actually having the things that you want. So 2nd house really does mean that you need to find your own sense of self-worth and just finding it from yourself and not from other people. That is a theme that really comes with Saturn. It's like taking care of ourselves because we really don't need the help of other people, and Saturn is here to show you that. Okay. Saturn in the 6th house can mean that you have a difficult time. Well, 6th house is ruling health and wellness. So if you feel like you have any difficulty with your health or feeling like you can be on track with your physical goals, you really need to find a structure or a schedule or routine. You are someone who would really benefit from a day-to-day routine, especially when it comes to health and wellness or anything that just really makes you feel more productive. So if you similar to what I said before, it's like if you feel like you're not getting much done in your day, think about what your schedule looks like. Like, are you overloading yourself? Are you procrastinating? Like, what do you need to do to feel productive every single day? Saturn in the 1st house can definitely mean that you are very hard on yourself. It's very similar to anyone who has Capricorn in their big 3, because Saturn rules Capricorn. The 1st house is your identity, but Saturn in the 1st house means that you are a very serious person. You may come across as serious to other people. It does depend on your rising sign, but you have this like kind of quiet, more reserved, cautious, serious Saturn nature to you. You can be someone who is very hard on yourself, like I said with Capricorn placements. You also may be someone who takes on too much responsibility from other people that you don't need to take on. So you need to think about like, how can I take care of myself, respect my limits, respect my boundaries, honor my needs without listening to the opinions of other people or trying to do everything for other people and neglecting myself. So something to think about. Funny, my days are so ADD. Yeah, you really may benefit from some kind of structure in your routine. Saturn in the 10th house does mean that you're going to run into resistance in terms of your career. So you may especially find that you have difficult bosses. I often find that with Saturn in the 10th house, but it's kind of like the feeling like, you know, someone is like nagging you or like watching over you and kind of just like always putting you down. Just be aware of that. But Saturn is only bringing this obstacle because he's trying to empower you to step up as the authority figure. So you personally need to be more of an authority and a leader in your career. So whether that means just leading your little group or actually just being a public spokesperson, you are someone who is supposed to be an authority figure in your career. You may also have a job revolving around Saturn themes like management or corporate affairs. You might build your own business. You are really supposed to be kind of like a mogul, an entrepreneur in your career. So think about that. Saturn in the third house can mean that you have difficulty with education or communication. Sometimes that means that you feel like you didn't do well in school. Not that you weren't smart, but maybe the way that you learned didn't connect to like the traditional way of doing school. And so you may want to think about like, what is your best way of learning? It doesn't need to be the traditional way, right? Everyone has different ways to learn, so you need to think about that. Okay. With that, I don't want to forget, I know some of you guys had questions like, what does it mean when, you know, your Saturn and your Jupiter are in the same house, or your Saturn and your Sun? You know, I talked about how Saturn is the planet of challenges, and yet your Jupiter is the planet of luck, right? So what does it mean when they're both in the same house? So the first thing I want to say is that having Saturn and Jupiter in the same house, it doesn't mean that Saturn negates Jupiter. You have both luck, success, and challenges and obstacles in the same house, if that makes sense. So you still have both. It's not like Jupiter goes away. But for you specifically, you may actually need to work a little bit harder to unlock the Jupiter luck. Like you may need to become more disciplined and mature first before you can have that natural growth and success. So you really need to think about getting yourself on track in the ways that you need to be. Like we all know certain areas of life where we can be doing better or we're not doing what we should be doing. So those are the things to focus on. Be sure to do the Saturn thing first. But with that, you may also need to realize that Jupiter is equally as important as well, and you need to lean on Jupiter, because sometimes Saturn and Jupiter in the same house, Saturn makes you afraid to take risks. It kind of dampens your Jupiter. So you still need to push yourself. You still need to get out of your comfort zone. You still need to be optimistic about things in order for you to get the luck along with the authority, achievement, and success. Okay, awesome. Okay, I have 3 more planets. I'm going to go through them. I'm at an hour now, so hopefully I don't go too much over time. Okay. So 3 more planets, Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto. Let me just look at my notes. Okay. So the house of Uranus. This is actually a really exciting area of life, even though it has its own difficulties. But the house of Uranus is the area of life where you experience surprises, where you experience shock, change, things kind of just shifting very rapidly. It's like things coming out of left field, things coming out of the blue, things changing very rapidly. So it represents the area of life where you experience a lot of change, a lot of ups and downs, a lot of shocks. It is also the area of life where things can be very weird, very eccentric. Things are kind of just like kooky or unique there. So Uranus is both the planet of revolution, change, surprise, and it's also the planet of authenticity, uniqueness, eccentricity. So both of those things come out in the house of your Uranus. For example, I have my Uranus in the 11th house, which rules friends. So I have found that for me personally, I've always had weird friends, or I'm more comfortable with groups of people who are weird. Definitely not the popular type, definitely the people who are more artsy or out of the mainstream, just kind of like the kooky, wacky people, the new age people. I've always gotten along better with those types of people. But also with that, I've also experienced some kind of like rapid changes in my friendships. Like I've had certain like rapid falling outs with people, certain like rapid shifts in terms of our bonds. So for me, at least, that's how Uranus in the 11th house have manifested. It is where things change quickly, and also where you experience somewhat of weirdness, somewhat of eccentricity. It is also the area of life where you feel like you don't fit in. You feel like you're kind of not part of the mainstream, not part of the group. You feel like you're kind of isolated or just not fully accepted by other people in that house. So again, for me, I've always felt like even with my friends, I haven't been fully a part of the group, or I've never felt quite accepted by the group. So just something else to think about if you have Uranus in the 11th house. But with that, I want to say that is what makes Uranus so exciting, because even though it's the area of life where things are weird, where you don't quite fit in, that is also why it makes this house your superpower, because this house is the area of life where you can be very innovative. You can be very radical. You basically do things that are outside of the mainstream. You do things that are outside of the status quo. Like you're willing to push the envelope, you're willing to push the button, you're willing to do things that other people normally wouldn't do. So definitely check the house of your Saturn, because that is the area of life where you can have very revolutionary thoughts. You can invent something there. You can bring new age thoughts there. It is really a very exciting kind of like electric area of life for everyone. And so definitely think about that. Uranus in the 5th house can mean things rapidly changing in terms of romance, like I talked about with Saturn. The 5th house rules dating, romance. So Uranus can mean a lot of changes in terms of your love affairs. It can also mean you like to date people who are weird. You are more attracted to people who are kind of like off the beaten track or kind of just wonky and strange. You may also come across that way yourself to other people. Uranus in the 5th house also means that you need to create something that is very wonky. The 5th house is about your creations, the things that you put out into the world, the way that you make your mark. So with Uranus there, you need to make your mark in a Uranus way, which is different, authentic, like radically weird, new age, not fitting in, not following the crowd. Like your creations need to be something Uranus. So you can't be afraid to follow things that are not accepted. It may be things that are technological or scientific. It may be things that are, again, new age. It may be things that are humanitarian. So think about that with the 5th house. So, Uranus in the 1st house with Aquarius rising really just emphasizes your Aquarius rising. Aquariuses are very unique. Uranus rules Aquarius, and so all those themes apply to Aquarius. You are someone who is not afraid to be different. You are not afraid to have your own fashion style. You're not afraid to say the things you want, to express your viewpoints that are maybe not accepted in the mainstream. And Uranus means that is how you need to show up in the world. You need to show up as a change maker. You need to show up as someone who is teaching other people how to be more Aquarius, how to be more radically authentic, how to not be afraid to go against the mainstream. I will say though, Uranus in the 1st house, you may find that your sense of self changes very quickly. Like you might take on different identities, different fashion styles. Your personality might change a lot. You experience a lot of rapid change in terms of your identity. So that's something to think about. Uranus in the 4th house means that you do experience some kind of shocking change or just a lot of turmoil when it comes to matters of home and family life. This can sometimes mean that you moved a lot when you were a kid, or your family dynamic was very strange. It can also mean that you had an eccentric family, like maybe they were just people who were quite untraditional or kind of did things that are not, just the normal way of doing things. But you can also have very innovative thoughts when it comes to our personal close bonds, how we connect to other people, how we feel safe to other people. You may have a very unique method for self-care. You may have a very unique method of taking care of other people, a unique method of nurturing people. You may have a unique method of decorating the house, anything like that, anything that has to do with the 4th house. So be aware of that. Uranus in the, let me see if I have missed a lot. Yeah, Uranus in the 6th house can mean that you have ups and downs when it comes to your routine. You are someone who needs things to be a little bit flexible in order for you to be productive. You don't necessarily want to have a set structure every single day. That will benefit you, but you also need to give yourself room to experiment. That's the best word. You need to be trying new things. You need to be trying also weird approaches to health and wellness with the 6th house. Like you may be really interested in like very abstract fitness routines, very abstract workouts, very strange diets, nutrition, anything like that. You need to kind of experiment with the ways in which you do things in the 6th house. Awesome. Uranus in the 9th house means that you need to go out of your comfort zone to explore the world, to see foreign cultures. Again, the 9th house rules travel. And through that, traveling is how you're going to feel like your most authentic self. That's where your true uniqueness is going to come out. That's where your own authenticity is going to come out. You're going to experience other cultures, other ways of being that really kind of enlighten you to the way things could be and kind of help you see how you can express your true self. So you definitely need to go out there and see the world. But it can also mean that you experience lots of shocking things when you travel. You can experience things that change very rapidly. So you may need to be a little bit cautious, but definitely don't be afraid to put yourself out there. Uranus in the 2nd house really money, possessions, your practical goals. It can mean somewhat of an up and down in terms of money or just kind of the ways in which you get the practical matters of life, whether that is money or cars, your house, whatever. Things can be volatile there, but with that, you need to think about like, what are the things that are most important? Like, do you really value this car? Do you really value these possessions? Like, you need to prioritize things correctly, so that you can go after the things you want in a very clear-headed way, because Uranus is going to make things very volatile if you're not being your true authentic self when it comes to how you make money, the things that you buy, anything like that. Because a lot of times, we can tend to buy things because other people are buying it, things like that. So you really need to think about, what do I actually want? Okay. Oh, Uranus and Neptune in the 8th house. That is a doozy, because obviously the 8th house rules death, rebirth, transformation. I don't want to say that, I saw someone ask a question like, can these planets predict death? That's like a loaded question, and there are honestly so many things that can tie into that question. But I mean, typically planets in the 8th house do mean that you're going to be experiencing some kind of very emotional, raw event that forces you to evolve, forces you to transform. And so sometimes that can mean death. That can mean a literal death of someone, but it can also mean a metaphorical death. Like, it can mean the breakup of a very important relationship that leaves you kind of feeling like they died, right? Even though they didn't die. And so Uranus can mean that you're going to experience some kind of shocking emotional event that really forces you to think about, like, who am I? Like, who is my authentic self? And like, what do I want to go after? Like, what are my personal beliefs and opinions? How have I been conditioned by other people to think? And how do I need to let go of that conditioning? And with the 8th house, you really do need to do a lot of like deep internal self-reflection. A lot of like psychology with yourself, like going to a therapist would be awesome, obviously, for anyone in the 8th house, any planets in the 8th house. But you do need to get underneath the surface to think about, like, why am I attached to these things, or why am I attached to the past? Why can't I let these things go? You will experience a lot of volatility that kind of forces you to confront these questions, basically. Don't be scared. I know what I said was all very like dark, but with the 8th house, you can also be very powerful. I want people to understand that the 8th house gives you a lot of magnetism, gives you a lot of like spiritual power. And anyone with planets in the 8th house really need to develop their own intuition, because that is kind of like one of the only ways you're going to get through this. And you'll find that you are way more powerful than you can even imagine. And so you really need to trust yourself and empower yourself through those practices. Okay, awesome. Uranus is in your 8th house right now. Yeah, that can be an emotional time, but always do things daily that make you feel powerful and in control, because Uranus is kind of trying to shake you up to see areas of life where you have lost your power or let go of it to other people. So you want to take that back as much as you can. Okay, let's move on. We have Neptune and Pluto left, so I want to get through these for sure. So Neptune is the planet of spirituality. It is a planet that rules things that are beyond the veil. It rules transcendence and kind of just anything that is beyond the physical reality. And so, I mean, that's kind of a lot to take in, but the house of your Neptune is really the area of life where you experience confusion, where you experience a sense of fogginess. This is the area of life where you can't see things very clearly. You might feel like you have rose-colored glasses on. You might feel like you are living in fantasy in this area of life. You may have blind spots here. It's kind of the area of life where things are confusing for you, where things are not quite what they seem. For example, again, I have a friend who has Neptune in her 5th house ruling dating. And so she is definitely someone who has a hard time with dating, specifically because she's not willing to see reality for what it is when it comes to dating. So she sees someone, she's dating someone, they act a certain way and they don't act quite right, but she kind of deludes herself into thinking that they really care about her or that they're really into her, even though all their actions are screaming that they don't actually care. And so that is one example of Neptune, is that, again, Neptune in the 5th house means that you have blind spots when it comes to dating. That's where you get lost in fantasy. That's where you're not willing to see reality for what it is. And so that's something to think about. Neptune in the 4th house can mean all of those themes in terms of your family. So you might have felt like your family was quite not an illusion, but there was something that you couldn't quite understand about your family. Maybe your parents, maybe how they presented themselves weren't exactly how they were on the inside. Maybe you were always wondering who your parents truly were, or any of your family members. But also, it can also mean that your family was very spiritual. They were very enlightened. They were very much like connected to the other side. So it can have both interpretations. But again, the fourth house is the area of life where you experience Neptune confusion. But I will say, again, all these planets have a lower side, but also a higher side. And the reason why Neptune brings confusion is because Neptune is challenging you to seek clarity from sources that are kind of outside the mainstream and outside of the physical. So it often means finding clarity through your intuition, through your emotions, through how you feel about things rather than what you think about things. And so it really is the area of life, the house of your Neptune, where you can experience a spiritual awakening. It's really the area of life where your intuition and your spiritual nature comes out the most strongly. So again, even if you had a very confusing family life with the fourth house, understanding more about your family in terms of your heritage, your culture, your roots, your ancestors, your past lives, all of those things can be practices that help you uncover your own spiritual nature and activate like higher sides of yourself, like really activate your third eye. So you want to look at your Neptune house. Doing things in your Neptune house is how you awaken your spiritual side. For me, I have Neptune in the 11th house, which rules community, humanitarian ideals. And I really feel like when I started doing things that were more humanitarian, like I started working in nonprofits, I was really involved in politics for some time. Like that is when my spiritual urges started coming out, and that is really when I felt like I was awakening this like higher side of myself. So definitely something important to think about. If you have Neptune in the 6th house, then you can have confusion about your body, and it can mean you're a hypochondriac. Like you may feel like you have illnesses that you don't actually have. You see things that are not there. It can also mean, I have had clients with Neptune in the 6th house where they have illnesses that doctors cannot diagnose. I don't want this to sound scary. I will tell you how they resolved it, but it can mean that you have illnesses where doctors are like, I don't know what's wrong with you. Like everything is fine on your charts. Like there's nothing wrong with you. And yet you're still having these symptoms. But the thing with Neptune is that oftentimes with the 6th house, your emotional trauma is coming out into your physical body with the 6th house. So if you have unresolved anger, unresolved hurt, unresolved feelings, it's going to come out in terms of illness with the 6th house in your physical body. And so anyone who has Neptune in the 6th house really needs to be careful about their emotional self-care, because that is going to come out in your body essentially. Okay. Neptune in the 7th house means that similar to the 5th house, you can have rose-colored glasses on when it comes to your relationship. So you may not be able to put up appropriate boundaries when it comes to other people. Like you may let people walk all over you, or you may not know when to say no or when to end the relationship, things like that. But you can also have a spiritual sense when it comes to how you deal with other people. And so it's really like your spirituality comes out in relationships. You need to seek spiritual mentors, or just mentors who help you see things from a higher perspective, whether that is a spiritual mentor or a therapist or a counselor. But one of your close bonds is going to help you activate your third eye, activate your intuition, and to help you really understand how to navigate your relationships more effectively. So that is something to think about. Neptune in the 10th house means that you will experience confusion in your career, but it also means that your career will involve something Neptunian. And so you are supposed to be showing up as this kind of like transcendental figure, kind of like larger than life, or a spiritual figure again. Your career may involve any of those things. Neptune is also the planet of creativity and artistry. So you may also have a very artistic career. Your career may involve, making art, making music, making film, things like that. You may be an actor. That is kind of stereotypical for Neptune in the 10th house. It can also mean you have a career where you are healing other people. Neptune, the house of your Neptune, is also an area of life where you have the ability to heal. So in the 10th house, it means that your career needs to be about healing other people, like a nurse or a Reiki healer, crystal healer, anything like that. Okay. Thank you, Steve. Awesome. Yeah, Neptune the 10th, I said. Neptune the first house means that you can be confused about who you are. There's confusion about your identity. And you really need to go within internally to figure out who you are instead of listening to outside sources, because whenever you have plans in the first house, you can tend to rely a little bit too much on what other people are saying. You need to let your intuition guide you. You need to let your feelings guide you. You may also really need to indulge or practice spiritual things like tarot reading, astrology, things like that. That's an innate part of your DNA. That's an innate part of your nature with Neptune in the first house. And so you need to connect to any Neptune themes. I do feel like oftentimes, or not often, but many times, actors and actresses have Neptune in the first house because they're very good at kind of putting themselves in other people's shoes, going beyond themselves, going beyond the physical to act a character. So I do feel like I've seen celebrity charts where they have Neptune in the first house. So definitely think about that. Okay. Neptune in the second house does mean that you have confusion around money because you may have blind spots. You may have wishful thinking when it comes to making money. You may just expect things to happen. You may not be grounded, practical, and realistic about how you're actually going to make that money. But with that, you do also need to be more idealistic about how you get it. So the house, when you have Neptune in the second house, you can really manifest your dream when it comes to making money. Like what is your dream way of making money? That's what I want to say. Like, is your dream to, be an astrologer? Is it to be a motivational speaker or a coach? What is your ideal way of making money? Because that is what you need to be working towards with Neptune in the second house. So that goes for any other people with Neptune. The house of your Neptune is the area of life where you can manifest your dream vision. So you really need to think about, like, what is my dream when it comes to the 11th house or the 10th house or the 6th house? Like, what is my ideal in a perfect world if I can have everything I wanted in that house? Because Neptune will help you activate those things. Okay, awesome. Wow, we were at the last planet. I cannot believe it. I'm 20 minutes over time. That's fine. But let me just finish out with this and I will let you guys go. We have the best for last. Well, not the most intense for last, I will say, with Pluto. Multi-passionate entrepreneur. Yeah, that's a beautiful way to put it. You are definitely going to have a multi-dimensional way of making money with Neptune in the second house. Okay, let's finish out with Pluto, guys. Pluto is definitely the most intense planet, I will say. Pluto is the planet that rules the 8th house. And I talked a lot about how the 8th house is emotional. It rules death, rebirth, transformation. So the house of your Pluto is the area of life where you're going to have some type of very raw, very intense, sometimes traumatic emotional experience. It is the area of life where you have a lot of very raw, visceral feelings, a lot of like gut primal feelings like lust, greed, rage, fear, anxiety. Those things can manifest in the house of your Pluto. So obviously, I know that sounds scary, but again, these planets bring resistance so that we can grow. And Pluto brings destruction and emotional turmoil to us so that we are forced to let go. We are forced to let go and surrender. And so the house of your Pluto is the area of life where you may experience some kind of traumatic event that really forces you to surrender and let go. And by us doing that, we really tap into our true source of power and we are able to evolve into a higher version of ourselves. So it's really important, whichever house you have Pluto, if things are not working out for you, if you're constantly running into battles, if you're constantly fighting with other people, you need to figure out, what do I need to release? What do I need to let go? Even if you're really attached to it, even if you really love it, you need to let it go because that surrender is how you're going to have everything you want in that house. It's not going to be you just forcing things. You need to know when is the time to release and surrender. And if you don't, Pluto may continue to bring more destruction, more turmoil, all of those things. And so you definitely want to be cognizant of that. Again, the ultimate goal of Pluto is transformation. And so the house of your Pluto is really where you're going to undergo this experience of death, rebirth, transformation. Like if you have Pluto in the 7th house rules relationships. So that can mean the death of a relationship. Again, that could be a literal death, like they actually die, or a metaphorical death where it's just like a very traumatic breakup. But some kind of traumatic breakup is going to force you to confront your shadows, confront your dark side, figure out like what are the things you're holding onto that don't really serve you, and how can you let it go. And once you finally let go of those things, whether that might be like you may be too giving to your relationships, you may be stuck in a cycle of abusive relationships, whatever it might be, but you need to let it go. Because by that surrender, you actually get the relationship you want. You become very powerful in terms of how you relate to other people, in terms of how you work with other people. And so you do need to experience this kind of like darkness that forces you to face the shadows, face your fears. It leads to a breakthrough that eventually goes into a rebirth of yourself. Okay. So what are people saying here? So Pluto in the 6th house, this can be one of those things where, I mean, I don't want to make it too dark, but it can mean a transformation of your body. The 6th house does rule your physical body. So the stereotypical interpretation of Pluto in the 6th house means a transformation of your physical body, because it is kind of teaching you how to let go of attachments to certain aspects of your body or of your health, how to let it go so that you can be guided on the right ways to be fit or be healthy, rather than kind of obsessing over it or trying to control it too much. So you may need to go through some kind of like rebirth process when it comes to how you take care of yourself physically. Now, it doesn't mean that something bad is going to happen to you, like you'll get in an accident. Like it can happen in so many ways, honestly, but that is just one interpretation of how that can manifest. Pluto in the 2nd house can mean kind of like this death rebirth when it comes to money. And oftentimes I feel like I've seen this manifest as like a rags to riches story. Like either you're really poor when you're in childhood and then you become rich, like very rich in adult life, or it's kind of the reverse, right? You are rich when you're a child from family, but then it goes to you become poor somehow and your wealth is destructed. But Pluto is really bringing this destruction because it's trying to make you let go of attachment to the material things of life, whether that's money, your car, your handbags, your clothes, your possessions. Pluto is trying to make you let go of unnecessary attachment to the physical world, to your material possessions, to your money. And so just think about that, because the more that you're proactively kind of letting go of things, releasing things when it comes to the 2nd house or any of the Pluto houses, you can achieve a breakthrough more easily without kind of going through all the darkness. So definitely think about that. Pluto in the 4th house can definitely mean some kind of like traumatic, maybe family experience that leads to a transformation. It can mean, I mean, I don't want to say dark things, but like I have seen like actual clients have sexual abuse in their family, or just abusive parents, or a death in their family. Like, I'm not saying this is actually how it's going to manifest. It can also mean a very wealthy family. Pluto means extreme wealth. And so you can have a very wealthy family, but you know, with great wealth, with great power, with great turmoil comes darkness, right? And so it can definitely mean that you experience some kind of difficulty in terms of home and family life, or in terms of how you feel safe in your life. That kind of really challenges you to face your shadows again, so that you figure out like, what do I actually need to feel secure? What do I actually need to feel at home? Whether that means my real family, or you know, my coworker family, my friend family, whatever it is, you really need to think about like, how do you actually feel at home? Okay. Pluto in the 1st house can mean a transformation of identity. So it's kind of similar to Uranus in the 1st house. Uranus in the 1st house means you go through a lot of changes in your identity. Pluto means that you go through a transformation of your identity. So maybe you were just like one type of way when you were growing up, and you were very much one type of person, and maybe you were afraid to branch out, but something is going to happen to you that kind of forces you to take on a different role, or a different way of being, a different fashion style, whatever it is, because you are equipped to take that role. And that new role is how you step into higher levels of power for yourself. So definitely something to embrace with the 1st house, and don't be scared of it. Pluto in the ninth house means you will be transformed, going on a foreign travel, foreign destination. You need to go out and see the world in some way. It also means that if you study, go to college specifically, you can experience a transformation of yourself. And I actually have Pluto in the ninth house, and I definitely feel like my college experience and just my educational pursuits are something that kind of forced me to have a death. Like I had to have a death of my beliefs basically with the ninth house. I had to release like old political beliefs, old religious beliefs, like my Christian beliefs, all those things kind of had to be destroyed in order for me to step into a new belief system, a new level of power. And so that is something to think about with the ninth house. Okay. Well, the final thing I want to say with the Pluto house is that yes, there is destruction, there is turmoil, there is surrender, but that house is also the area of life where you can bring healing to others and where you can help other people transform as well. So, you know, again, with Pluto in the ninth house, if you have to have a destruction of your own beliefs, so that you can build better beliefs, you can help other people do that as well. Like other people who want to see things that are out of their bubble or out of their comfort zone, that is definitely something that you can bring to others. If you have Pluto in the fourth house, you may have a difficult family experience, but you can also help other people navigate and go through their own difficult family experiences. So Pluto, it's always that our challenges, our wounds bring healing to others. Okay. How do I remember all of this? Well, Astro, I'll be honest, I do have my notes here right in front of me, but obviously I have been doing this for my clients for a long time, so it does come naturally. Okay. Awesome, guys. We have gone through all the houses, so thank you so much for listening. Thank you, guys. Talk to you later. Bye.